Welcome to Centreon, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We're excited to dive into two key topics, the new features included in the service pack for Centreon 24.10, our long-term support release, and the brand new Centreon Monitoring Agent, which is set to replace legacy tools like NS Client and NRPE. My name is Pierrick Martel. I lead the product marketing here at Centreon in Paris, and I'll be your host for this session. Joining me are two speakers, Romain Bignotti and Florian Mattes, who are both product managers. And also with me in the room is Fabrice Betok-Panou, who's made this webinar possible through his great work behind the scenes. Feel free to ask questions along the sessions at any time using the question mark icon at the top right of your window. Your questions will only be visible to the four of us here in the room, and we'll do our best to answer them after each section of the webinar. This leads me to the agenda. This is how this session will unfold. So first, we'll spend about 15 minutes exploring the new features in the 24.10 LTS service pack. That will be followed by a short Q&A about that section. And then we'll move on a deeper dive, maybe about 30 minutes, into the Centreon Monitoring Agent, and with time at the end for all your questions on that subject. So we're planning for the full session to run approximately for 1 hour. All right, a lot of people have joined now, so it's time to get started. So let's begin. Romain, over to you. You've already unmute your mic and you can share your screen.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Nice to be back to another webinar. So this one will be, as Pierrick said, focused on two things. I'm going to show you the first one. It's about the service pack, which is the following release, minor release of the 24.10 that will be available soon. We're going to dive into details about what's inside. I won't go too much into details, but I wanted to highlight main things to you and get your feedback and questions after that. So first of all, why do we do a service pack? Of course, it's to enhance the UX, the stability and the security of our latest major release. But we wanted also to add new features to that release. And that's what we did. We did some new things on four main topics: resource status page, new dashboards, business activities, and map. Of course, along with these new features, we also did many patches and security updates as usual to be sure to deliver the most stable version as possible. So this service pack will be released in the next minor release of end of July, so coming soon. And after that, new product evolutions will be available in the next major version, which is the 25.10 available in October. Okay, so let's go to some details. About resource status, so we heard you many feedback concerning the efficiency of this page. So we are doing a lot of optimization on that. First one is concerning the performance, the request that is done when you are doing the search. This has been optimized enormously, but we are still working on other optimizations, but this is the first major one that is available now. Another feature is a new state, an additional state, which is called flapping. You can see on the top right of the screen. So new color and new pictogram to identify these resources that are changing their status frequently. So this is now possible, along with the existing state as in downtime and acknowledged. And third major feature introduced here is the most wanted ID from our community forum, The Watch, which is the CSV export directly within the resource status page, available clicking on the pictogram on the top right. So yes, simple export on CSV file where you can choose to export all the pages you are filtering with the resources you want to filter, and you can choose the columns you want to export. And then, of course, once you have exported your data into a CSV file, you can then do what you do want to do with them, as manipulate data or use any API to handle this data. So I hope this will satisfy your needs. Let's go on with the dashboards. So as you may know, dashboard is the new visual part of Centreon, which is soon replacing the custom views. So legacy pages, it won't be happen in the next release, but yes, keep in mind that this is the future. We want it to be the most simple and modernized version to do some monitoring, also on television. So yes, we continue to implement features on this part and to add missing features comparing to what already exists in custom views. First one is the meta services. They were not available in the dashboard yet, but they are now. So in many widgets, you can now choose to select another type of resource, which is meta service. You can now use favorite dashboards to quickly identify the dashboards you really want to access rapidly. And third one is the new widget concerning the business activity, which is the status history, where you can choose a reporting period and analyze quickly the different status your business activity has had during the time. So really helpful if you want to identify any recurring problem, for example. So this is available as a standalone widget now in the dashboard, but we can also move on the new business activity monitoring page. So we are doing a huge rework of this major business feature within Centreon, which is the business activity. You've seen some widgets on dashboards. We are doing also optimization on other pages. So this is the first major change we are doing now. This is the current interface of the business activity monitoring page. I am now proud to show you the new one. So this will be available. And as you can see, for those of you who are already familiar with the dashboards, is we try to reuse the same modern and easy way to identify and to monitor any resource. Here is for the business activity. You can see on the top left a tree vision of your BA and the different nodes and their status. So you can already collapse or expand any node and identify quickly any root cause. You can, on the top right, use the KPI list to, again, quickly identify which KPI is having a problem. And on the bottom, you can see the status tapline, which, as I just spoke about as a standalone widget, is also included directly in this page. For information on the top right, the BA tree is also already available as a widget within the dashboard. So really, really handy here. So this is the new version. Again, really more simple. We hope that you will find everything you want in a more easy way than before, and in a more sexiest way, I must say. Next, let's talk about map. So map, many things have been done too. First one that I want to mention is about the map widget that was not working on what we call the public playlists. So for those of you who are not already aware, public playlist is the new way of displaying several dashboards one after another with a rotation, especially on television with screens that are not logged directly on Centreon platforms. So this is the new name. It's a public playlist. It's included in the dashboard feature, and the map widget was not working yet on this public playlist. It is now. So public playlists are now fully operational. Feel free to use them. The second one is adding the privileges for geographical views. So it's a sub part of the map where you can use geo coordinates to position your different resources on a real map. So that was not possible before to use privilege or to grant rights to contact groups to visualize or not some geographical views. It is now possible the same way as it worked for the map, the classic map. It's now also possible for the geographical views. And the third point I want to mention here is we did a lot of work to make the migration from map legacy to map really easy, because as you may know already, on the 24.10 version, the map legacy is in end of life. So we wanted to be sure that before migrating to the 24.10, it was really, really easy for you to migrate. No problem, no exception, etc. So we did a lot of work based on most of your feedback with specific cases that are not handled. So yeah, I hope this will do the work for you. If you haven't already do the migration, yeah, I can advise you to do so now, because it's really more stable and efficient now. So that's it for the main features and things we did in this service pack.
All right, thank you. This
Thank you.
migration to map was very important, and it's a big part of it, so that everybody can move to a much better new map module extensions. I have a few questions here. The first one is there a possibility within the BAM module to create the tree the kind of dynamically by adding host group that session that a BAM view
Yeah,
must be created only once. Yeah, that would be an automatic BAM from the host group
yeah, I understand your
somehow.
question. Yes, uh, actually, it's not possible currently, but we are thinking, as I said, we are doing a great rework of the whole
Hmm.
BA feature, including the configuration. And yes, we are thinking about simplifying a lot the configuration of a BA. That could be an option using host groups or hosts. So we have this in mind. Thank you for the reminder, I would say, but it could be possible. It could be added in the next versions. Yes, good idea.
All right. Yes. You mentioned so that this service pack will be available with the next minor release in July. How will I be aware of the release, the actual date of the release? How do I know when it is? What's the best way?
And the best way would be to keep updated on the next minor release. The service pack is the next minor release of the
Yeah, and
24.10. So the one of the end of July will be
the
available as
announcement
any other version.
will be on the watch on the channel on the watch to know the release. Yeah. So what about REST APIs to manage BAs? That's questions from Yaroslav.
Yes, today indeed it's not a really REST API, but I think you can still use it to do what you want, or maybe I'm missing something. But yes, we are also in the planning to migrate to REST API all the pages that are not yet in REST. Not
Okay,
maybe
good.
for the 25.10, but it will be part maybe of the huge rework we plan to do.
Okay, okay. Yeah, the question was about REST API v2. There is the old API available, but when will we migrate to the
Yeah.
newer set of API? So in the planning, in the roadmap, not available yet. All right. No more questions on this service pack. Well, this is time for Florian to share his slide. All right, thank you. And talk about the Centreon Monitoring Agent.
Yeah, thank you, Pierrick. Hello, everyone. We'll talk about the Centreon Monitoring Agent. Maybe some of you have already tried the agent because we launched a beta program 1 year ago in June to deliver on each minor 24.10 version an agent with more and more features, with an UI, with a lot of enhancement on each version. And we get a lot of feedbacks, and thanks for that. Feedbacks from the watch, feedbacks from one-to-one meetings with customers, feedback from events, mainly in France, but also in Luxembourg, for example. And we used this feedback to improve the agent, and now we are ready to deliver a officially supported general availability version of Centreon Monitoring Agent. So that's what I will talk to you about today. Why did we developed a Centreon agent? We know that Centreon is mainly agentless. It's still the case. We are monitoring resources using pollers, which execute checks and send the data to the central. Yes, but in a lot of cases, you need to use agents. For example, where you have heavy checks, which consume a lot of resources and cannot be executed remotely. You can have security constraints. You can have a protocol that need the check to be on the host and not on the poller. You may want to remove the use of SNMPv2, don't use WMI, etc., etc. A lot of reason for you to use the agent. For now, the agent alternative are NRPE or NS client. NRPE has been stopped by Nagios, and NS client is still supported by Centreon, but it's not Centreon-based code. It's developed by very few people and have some very irregular updates and security issue that can last a lot of months. And we had a lot of customers who said, okay, we are using NS client, but we are not sure if security issues will be fixed or when they will be fixed, and we have some problem to continue with NS client. What Centreon want to do about the agent strategy? So we took this in account and brainstormed a lot on it, and also saw that monitoring now is not monitoring 20 years ago. Monitoring now is evolving toward observability with the collect of a lot of metrics with a standardized protocol like OpenTelemetry. And we wanted not to duplicate NS client, but really offer something more wider, more rich in terms of functionality, in terms of capability to handle tomorrow undeclared metrics. So to go to observability and not only monitoring. So we made the choice to develop an agent from scratch, which implement OpenTelemetry natively. So here, the goal of this agent is to serve a more global strategy, which is allow Centreon to be totally to ensure interoperability using OpenTelemetry. So the agent will be in charge of collecting data and will not replace the poller. It's like today, NS client is not replacing the poller. You can use both poller and NS client. It will still be the case. We will not remove pollers and classic checks because your, for example, your switch will never send OpenTelemetry data to Centreon Central. So we need to keep the poller. We need to keep SNMP protocol. We need to keep a lot of legacy protocol, and that's okay. But also, we will offer an agent to be able to send data to Centreon using OpenTelemetry, collect data and host, and send this data to third-party software. And that's why we choose OpenTelemetry, because a lot of software are able to import, to collect OpenTelemetry data. So the other goal of this agent is tomorrow to also be able to collect logs. I will talk about it at the end of the webinar. But the agent is also dedicated to participate to our log management strategy in Centreon, and will not only be a metrics agent. If you are using NS client right now, you may ask yourself why I would migrate to Centreon monitoring agent. What will be the benefits? Because it has a cost in terms of time, in terms of to change habits, to change what is existing. The first benefit is about performance and network footprint. We did a lot of benches, and the agent is able to reduce from 30 to 50% the footprint on host, and on poller it's more than that. For a simple reason, the agent works in passive mode. So that's not the poller that will do the check on the host and push the check every minute, for example, but it will give the configuration to the agent, and the agent will schedule his own checks. That's totally different. So the agent is scheduling his check and send to the poller the data. So we are able to manage more than 10,000 agents with one poller with minimal resources. It's not a Formula One poller. It's just a classical minimal requirements poller, which is able to handle 10,000 agents. And this client can't do that with this number of hosts. Poller will crash before that. So that's the first point. And it's also linked to the fact that we develop native check, which are very performant during execution. So this native check will not overload the host. The second one, we made a choice about security to make mandatory tokens and TLS certificates by default. Why we did that? Because we consider that agent to poller communication is critical in both ways, and some configuration files, configuration information, not files, sorry, information, credentials, very critical, will be sent and received into this tunnel. So we can't handle and we can't sleep well the night if there are customers which are using plain text connection without security between agent and pollers. So tokens and TLS are mandatory, but we kept an alternative to test the agent with what we call the no TLS mode. And the no TLS mode will allow you to test the agent without certificates, without tokens for 1 hour. And after 1 hour, the agent will stop. And if you want to try it again, you will have to manually restart the agent on the host to continue to use it without security. So this is to ensure you will not use, you will not forget an agent on a test server, which become a production server and will be a real weakness in your security. So we also brought a DMZ infrastructure support with a both direction connection. I will talk about it just after. We also offer offline plugin installation. Let me explain that. When you extend the agent on Windows, you will have an installer and we will have the option to install Centreon plugin. It will get plugins from the GitHub repository. But if your host doesn't have internet access, the installer will embed a plugin version, which will be not necessarily the last one, but a very recent one linked to the date of the generation for the Windows installer. So that can be helpful if your host hasn't access to internet. Other point is the simplified Windows configuration. We worked a lot to ease as much as possible the configuration of the agent. For Windows, you can use an installer, you can use command lines, and on the central, so on the poller side, everything can be done using the user interface or API, of course. I will talk more in detail about it just after. Another point is OpenTelemetry interoperability. As I said, Centreon Monitoring Agent is natively built using OpenTelemetry protocol. So we are able to push OpenTelemetry data to Centreon, and in the next minor release, we will be able to push OpenTelemetry data to any third-party software which will collect OpenTelemetry. And last but not least, Centreon support and dedicated roadmap. For now, NS client is supported, packaged and supported by Centreon, but we are not accountable of the code base because it's not a Centreon product. So now Centreon Monitoring Agent is fully developed and supported by Centreon. That includes vulnerability or other security issue that could trigger. And we have a dedicated roadmap. The agent that we deliver right now in the next weeks will not be the agent in 6 months. It will evolve a lot. We have a big roadmap on it, a lot of feedback And again, thanks for that. Very helpful. Thank a lot of ideas that we prioritized and development resources affected assigned to this agent, and product resources. Here I am. So how it works? Agent is basically three configuration actions. On the host side, the configuration actions is to deploy the agent and set its local configuration. It's available for Linux or for Windows. So for Linux, you have a procedure. You have a JSON file to modify with the configuration. And for Windows, you can use an installer or a command line interface. So host configuration is basically saying the agent where it can store the logs if you don't want a logs in event log for Windows, and give him some certificate information and token information to be able to communicate with the poller, and that's all. Then the rest of the configuration will be done in the central UI. So the first step will be to generate a token. For that, you can use the already existing interface, which is called for now API tokens, and will be renamed authentication tokens, which will provide a second type of token. We have API, so we will have CMA, Centreon Monitoring Agent token. This token can expire or not, and will be exclusively dedicated to Centreon Monitoring Agent. You can't use an API token for CMA, and you can't use a CMA token for API for obvious reason. That's totally different tokens. So once you configured the token, you can use the UI or the API to configure the poller by giving the certificates and the tokens, and poller and agent are able to communicate. So the last step is to configure host and services, and for that you can count on dedicated monitoring connectors, Windows Centreon Monitoring Agent and Linux Centreon Monitoring Agent, which are already available with a lot of checks and can be used with Centreon Monitoring Agent directly with host template and service template. You can also, of course, use your custom script that you already use with NS Client and API. So what's about the monitoring? Pretty simple, not a revolution, but secured connection. You have a poller, you have the host, poller engine, and host have the agent. So the agent will connect to engine, or engine can connect to the agent. I will talk to that just after. We can have two directions for the connection, which handle different functional and technical constraints. And once the connection is established, secured connection is established, the communication is both way. So the engine will send the configuration to the agents at each time the configuration is updated by a configuration expert. And the agent will execute the check and send monitoring data to engine, which will store, proceed, and go to the alerting, etc., like all the data in Centreon. I already talked about security, just more than a reminder that a new fetch information, but we will provide TLS, and this will not be an option, and we will require certificate on the poller and host side and tokens. But we had a lot of feedbacks on that, so I think it will be a priority in the next months to help users to onboard when you don't want to create dedicated certificate. And I think the option, we're still in brainstorming for that, but the option will be to generate an auto-sign certificate when you create a poller. So you will not have to generate manually a certificate. That's still an idea. We are still thinking about that. So don't hesitate to go to the watch if you have some idea, some improvement on that. We will take it into account and discuss it with you. So for testing purpose, as I already said, a no TLS mode is possible and limited to 1 hour before the agent stop. About connection direction. So there are two connection directions for the agent. the agent can connect to the poller, or the poller can connect to the agent. The first one could be the more common, I think, but it depends of your constraint. The first one will be I give to the agent the poller IP or DNS, and the agent will connect to the poller on a dedicated port. And the poller IP and DNS must be known on the host side. That's the first case. The other case is the poller, which is the client, and the agent will be the server. So here, the poller will connect to the agent, and it can be useful in a lot of cases, but the more common one for me will be the DMZ. For example, in this case, the host will not be able to communicate with an external machine. So here, that will be the poller which will connect to the host, and the poller will have, and we plan this mode in the UI, so you can manage host in the UI directly. The poller will connect to each host using IP or DNS and a dedicated token if you need, or the same token if you need. Tokens are totally flexible on that. You can use the same token for every poller. You can use one token per poller, one token per host poller if you need it. It depends on what you want to manage. Expiration, no expirations, it's totally flexible. So a screenshot of the interface, but the poller configuration, we try to make it more easier than possible, as easy as possible. So you can select the poller, you can put certificate information, and you select the token. And with that, you can save. If you are on no TLS encryption level, it's easier than that. You just have to set encryption level to no TLS, and that's no other option. So this interface will also evolve, not in terms of fields, but in terms of user experience. We already identified some enhancements. So don't worry if you see this interface evolving in the next months. It will be for the best because we had a lot of feedbacks, useful feedbacks on it. So functionally, it's here. And in terms of ergonomy, it will evolve a lot in the future. About the Windows installer, it will also evolve in terms of design, but all the fields are already here. It allows you to configure the agent on a Windows host by configuring the poller endpoints if you are in agent initiated connection mode, or the nothing to configure if you are in a poller initiated connection. The agent will only listen. And you can configure the encryption by giving certificates needed depending on the connection direction, server or client. And also you have a default log type and log level. You can modify the log level. You can put the logs in event log or in a file. And this installer is also available in command line. So you can automate more than with the UI and ensure massive deployments using the command lines for Windows host. So about migration from NS client. First point, very important because we had a lot of questions at that. Yes, your NS client script, custom script, remains compatible with CMA. You can use the script, but you have to do some change in some case. On host, the only action is to deploy and configure the agent using the installer for Windows, using the procedure for Linux. Once you have the agent and it will be able to communicate with the poller, you are okay. You can do some double run with NS clients. It's totally possible. Just take care of not using the same port, obviously. On central interface, there are some things to do. You have to generate a token. So just a precision, I put interface. You can, of course, use API for each of these actions. Generate token. So once the token is generated, you can declare agent configuration using the interface I showed before for one or all pollers, if you use the same certificate for all pollers. You can deploy dedicated the connectors. You must deploy dedicated Windows Linux monitoring connectors. And you have to modify your host template and services depending of the case. First case, you are using custom scripts. So you will have to adapt associated commands, and this command will be executed and of course put the script on the host, and this command will be executed by CMA. Second case, you are using NS client native checks. So if you are using native checks, CMA onboard also native checks. So I will advise to you to switch to the CMA native checks, because CMA will not be able to execute NS client native checks. So here you will have to replace the services to use CMA service template and command to execute CMA native check, because the CMA native checks is totally different. Command is totally different in terms of syntax. And we had a lot of questions at that. The syntax is not an just like command with a check, .pl with params, etc. It's a JSON block. So that's normal because it's not an just like command. It's a JSON which is interpreted by the CMA, and CMA will execute the check based on this JSON. So you can't adapt the command. You have to use another command. And the third case is if you are using Centreon check, for example, the famous Centreon plugins.exe for Windows. This one is still used by CMA because we didn't redevelop the Centreon plugin.exe check. They're already here. They are functional. We are only redeveloped the NS client native checks. So you just have to modify service template to use Centreon monitoring agent dedicated service template. And you can keep your macros and other parameters because they are the same name with the new commands, of course. One point about cloud users. So for the cloud, there is a specific behavior about the Polar Central. Central Polar is not selectable in agent configuration because it's managed by Centreon. So you will not have to configure certificate on Central Polar and export a JSON file or other thing like that. This one is managed by Centreon. So when Centreon is deploying a cloud instance, the token and the agent configuration will be automatically populated in Centreon. You have nothing to do. And if you want to use the agent on the host and connect it to the Central Polar, for example, for trial purpose, or even if you're not in trial but in production and want to use the Central Polar, you will just have to enter the token and the platform IP on the host side in the agent configuration, and the agent will connect. You will not have to put some certificates or any other things because you are using the public certificates of your cloud platform. So it will not need it to put some certificate file on the host. So very simple, but good to know that there is a specific behavior for the Central Polar, and if you encounter some issue on that, you can discuss with the support about that. About availability. So after 1 year of beta phases, we are proud to announce that the Centreon Monitoring Agent will be officially supported in the 25.7 cloud version, and for on-prem for the 25.10.8 collect, 25.10.9 web, which will be released at the same time. And on the connector side, because it's a very transversal project, it will be in the beginning of August release, which will bring the last native check, task scheduler, file, but totally functional before this release. You just will have no free native checks missing, but all the rest is already functional. You can already test, worked with, and try to migrate from NS client if you need it. So what will be the scope of this general availability? As I said, we provide an open source that's very important about licensing, etc. The Centreon Monitoring Agent will be included in Centreon open source. That's a cross-platform agent for Windows and Linux. Maybe, Pierrick, you can anticipate a question and send the documentation link in the chat, which will display all the supported operating system. If your favorite operating system is not in it, you can always tell us. You can post on the watch group, and we will take a look on it and study this. We this morning in the French version of the webinar, we had a lot of questions about Solaris and AIX. that can be an option. So don't hesitate to participate, to vote on the watch on that. That's the point of an open roadmap. It's also to take into account your feedbacks. Passive data collection. So as I said, the agent is collecting passively, and we execute native Centreon or your own checks to push data to the Polar. Simplified configuration, because everything is done in the Centreon interface. You will not have to configure custom checks on the host. You just have to put your script on the host, and all the rest will be done in the command in the service, including the check interval or other things like that. You can configure it in Centreon and export configuration. Centreon Monitoring Agent is optimized for high data volume. As I say, we are ready. We bench. It's not theoretical. We benched high data volume, so the agent is totally scalable in terms of data volumetry. Flexible and secure. As I said, we make the decision to secure by default communication between the agent of the Polar with TLS, and already talked a lot about that. A set of powerful native check, very performant. Package will be available in download.centreon.com like any other package. And last but not least, dedicated documentation, huge documentation, which we continue to improve because we get a lot of feedback also on it. And there are a lot of information, including certificate configuration, different direction, connection direction, etc. So yes, the documentation can be pretty complex, but we will work to improve it also in the next day and next week. And of course, the watch group. The watch group is here since 1 year. It's for now the beta group, but it will remain and will be renamed in just Centreon Monitoring Agent, no beta. And this group is for me the best way, not necessarily to bring issue, because the support will be here also to help you on your problem you could have with Centreon Monitoring Agent, but to discuss about ideas, improvement, enhancement, optimization of the user experience. Because on the watch group, you will have the product team, including myself, and you will have developers, people who develop and maintain the agents. So you will have discussion with very technical or very product functional, more functional people that could be very, very interesting. Take a look. Give us all your ideas or your feedbacks, good, bad, that's okay, that's good. We need that. And thanks in advance for that. To conclude, some word about the roadmap. As I said, the roadmap is huge. That's not an exhaustive slide, not at all. And we continue to gather a lot of feedbacks, including those with this kind of webinars, meet with customer in France or not, one-to-one meet, etc. And our own strategy, of course. So the first step after the GA will be to bring a new security option, which is what we call TLS insecure TLS, which will be the ability to have TLS connection without command name check. Because for now, when you use full TLS, a verification is done on the common name of the certificate, which would need to match with the Polar DNS used by the agent, or the agent DNS, the host DNS used by the Polar, depending of the connection direction. So that can be, that's the more secured way to do, but it can be a problem in some case. For example, when you have a chat polars for the use with a lot of customers. And in this case, the host will not have the IP address, the DNS, sorry, of the Polar. So if you don't have the DNS, you need to use the IP, and the IP will not match with the command name. So you will need to either generate a certificate with a wildcard certificate, or use the certificates with IP as the command name, or use the TLS in secure mode. So we identified it as a real need. So it's that will be the first enhancement we will provide shortly. Another improvement is to bring some active checks features, because yeah, there is a big change with NS client. CMA is totally passive, so no first check, no retry. So the goal here is to bring back there's a very useful active check action. This is not an active mode for Centreon Monitoring Agent, it just features from the active check philosophy. First check and retry to begin, we will think about maybe putting some other feature of this kind. Another one is the automatic registration of new agent. Basically, it's I deploy an agent on a host. I put the Polar IP on the agent, and Centreon is able to detect that a new agent try to connect and eventually propose a workflow, propose to automatically add it. It can be called discovery, but it's not totally discovery. The workflow can be different because it can create the token, it can create the agent configuration, it can automate a lot of things. Another point that was brought in Luxembourg, Centreon Connect, by some customers, it's about the agent management interface. So it's basically an interface like for the polars. You can have the agent state, agent version, how many hosts are deployed, is the connection well secured, which token is used, will the token expire, or you can eventually push some updates to the agent, maybe. A lot of things to discuss about that, but we identify the need. Native cloud agent for containers, because it's a delivery that we want to do from the beginning. Very useful aussi, we think, and for now and for the future. And of course, log collection, because there are a lot of communication on that in the last months. Centreon is working on log management product. And of course, the goal is to have less agent than possible, and to use the Centreon Monitoring Agent to also collect logs that can be sent to the log management platform. So there is a big work on that and a lot of discussion, but log management platform will use different collectors, and Centreon Monitoring Agent could be one of them.
Indeed.
Thanks for listening, and let's discuss about your questions.
Yes, thank you, Florian, for all those explanations. I have a few questions, but you can still ask your questions now. We have, about 10 minutes or so to answer them. There is a question from Jean-Luc. He's talking about the Polar, which is hosted on the central server, if it communicates with TLS mode. Something about the certificates have to be deployed come from the Polar or from the host. I'm not too sure I understand the questions. Maybe Florian, you can.
Yeah, I think I understand. When you have a Polar initiated connection, it depends if you are in full TLS or TLS insecure. If you are in full TLS, the certificate have to be deployed on the host, because the host will be the server. So we'll have to deploy the private key and the public certificate. And on the Polar, you will have to deploy the CA. Depend if you are using public certificate, you have nothing to deploy, etc. There are a lot of different cases, but in the general case, the server will have to have the key and the COT. I don't know if it answers to your question.
Hopefully.
If needed, you have this information in the documentation about certificates.
Okay. There are, a few questions about which operating systems are supported. So we say Windows and Linux. In the documentation, there is a more precise list, which is the Red Hat 8 and 9. I'm trying to look at the list now. Where is it? Ubuntu.
Windows 10, Windows 11,
Windows 10, 11, Windows Server 2017, 2016, 2019, 2020, 22. That's the supported OS section in the documentations. If you want us to support something else or something different, please tell us so that people can vote. And maybe if many people vote, we can do it. Or maybe it's an open source agent. Someone from the community can help us do it. There is a question about the packaging. That's from Alexandre. For Linux, we can make use of package manager repositories. Is there something planned for the future regarding Windows package distributions, such as Winget or others package distribution?
Yeah, this morning we discussed about MSI. Maybe we need to discuss together, Alexandre, about Winget or other. It can be an interesting use case. Yeah.
Okay.
For
so
now,
let's
not planned. So, but let's discuss on it. Yeah, I'm very interested.
Yeah, let's discuss directly and okay. Let me look at the question. So there is something about from John. Can the agent monitor file logs, for example, in Linux, the varlog secure or varlog audit, these typical logs, or as Centreon plans to include some modules or that kind of to monitor file logs in events?
Okay. I plan some modules for that can monitoring file logs and event. Yeah, that's planned to. You can already use the check logs because there is a plugin used by NS clients who can allow you to check logs. I don't know if it's what you are thinking about. If that, yes, you can also use the check logs plugins to monitor logs. And if you want to go deeper in the logs, log collect and analysis, it will be with the log management Centreon product. That's in the roadmap, but much more later.
Okay. Yes, log management is a big project, and we'll hear a lot about it in the next October and November timeframe. Okay, let me look at our. That's Giuseppe. I recently had an issue where I had to enable services in order for the CMA to work for Windows monitoring. Does this issue got fixed by now?
Yeah, for me
Giuseppe
that's.
in Germany.
I don't know which issue we are talking about. So maybe the best will be to make a post in the watch with your problem, your version, and some logs, and we will work on that together. I will answer to you and do some debugs. Maybe
All
it's
right.
fixed, but I don't know which is really your problem. So we just have to have a look. But yes, the agent is functional, so it should work.
There's a question from Kai in Germany. Is it possible to get event logs from Windows?
Yeah, totally. It will be in the GA. I'm not sure it's for now in the current version in the beta.
Okay, so you
But
didn't get it to
GA.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's saying I didn't get it to work on my setup. So yeah, because it was not available.
Yeah,
But
24.10.8.
Okay, all right.
And connectors. August
Okay.
release.
All right. Let me try to clean up my question window. We have still a few minutes.
Let's see, I generate from polar status. It's not
So there are some questions which are totally unrelated to the topic, and we will answer them by emails after the webinar. At least 2 of them. Okay, what questions that we have answered? I think that's about it. So what will happen is that after this webinar, you will receive the replay, and we will be able, and we will get a copy of all your questions, which means that we will be able to answer some of these questions that we haven't answered yet by emails in the coming days. That's one thing. And there is already some new ideas that have been posted on the watch portal during the webinar, so that's great. So thank you all for joining this webinar. Thank you all for participating. You have links to all kind of documentations, tutorials, forums, and things like that. Please use all of that to use this new Centreon Monitoring Agent, or to use the new features of the service pack of 24.10. We will now close this webinar. Thank you, and bye-bye.